From his ongoing commitment to organizing, including the formation of his organization Peaceful Uprising, to his call to UU ministry, Tim DeChristopher's leadership has been inspiring a new generation of spiritual activists. Tim.
Thank you. When I was growing up in West Virginia, I learned firsthand that exploitation of the environment goes hand in hand with exploitation of people and local communities. And that instilled in me a deep sense of fighting that injustice and a deep passion for ending that oppression of both our land and our communities. But that experience of growing up in West Virginia also taught me the power of something like the coal industry. It instilled in me a sense of fear of an industry that big, that strong, that connected, that works so hard to keep people oppressed and to convince people that they have no other options. And I lived in that fear for quite a while, even as I had this burning desire to rise against that injustice. I held back because of that fear. But once I broke through that and I finally took action in 2008, and I took action without hesitation at that point, and I overcame that fear, and I finally had my actions in line with my sentiment, that fear disappeared. And I felt more free after that point than I had ever felt before. Even when I served 21 months in prison for that act of civil disobedience, I felt more free every day in prison than I had when I resided in that fear under the oppression of the coal industry. And even when I was isolated within that prison, I felt more connected to a community than I had in those days of fear beforehand, because I was connected to this community of faith that held on to me throughout that whole experience. And people around the country, in other UU congregations and in other communities around the country, reached out and held on to me during that experience. Because this is not just a movement that is fighting against injustice. This is not just a movement that is trying to take down one industry. This is a movement that is holding on to people and holding on and uplifting our communities and building a truly healthy and just world. And that boils down even down to our relationships, where we hold on to people that are taking a stand. And let this be a message. Let this rally here today and our presence here today in Louisville be a message that when people stand against injustice, they will not stand alone. There will be a community and a movement to stand with them and to hold on to them. And let's make it clear that this action, this event, and this commitment does not end here today on this plaza. That it will continue when we leave, because we have a great opportunity at this moment right now. We have a new EPA administration coming in, and we need to make our voices heard louder than the fossil fuel industry is heard. We know that the fossil fuel industry is desperate right now. All we have to do is look at their actions. The mountaintop removal itself is a desperate act. Hydraulic fracking is a desperate act. These are the desperate acts of a dying industry. And we know that in their desperation, they'll do whatever they have to do to hold on to their power. So we know that they're trying everything they can to make their voices heard in Washington. And we need to make our voices heard even louder. We need to be calling the new EPA administrator as often as we possibly can. We need to be writing handwritten letters to the EPA administrator, and we need to be showing up in those offices as often as we possibly can. We need to make our voices heard to every political official that takes money from the fossil fuel industry. Let them know that this people-powered movement is going to be more powerful than the fossil fuel industry. Make that voice heard in Washington and around the country. And let's also not just focus on the government. Let's think about all the other institutions that we're a part of and how we can isolate those institutions from the fossil fuel industry. How we can break that grip that the fossil fuel industry has, not only on our government, but on our society as a whole. Let's reach out to all the institutions that we're a part of, including the UUA, and demand that they divest from fossil fuels. So that we never have to add a sixth question to Wendell's poem. That we never have to ask ourselves, what climate catastrophes would we be willing to accept for a higher interest rate? We don't ever want to have to ask ourselves that. That's why we're going to take a stand and live by our principles and make this just the beginning of our commitment to live by our principles, to stand up to the most powerful industry in the history of the world, and to keep our commitment to the people of Appalachia. Let this be the beginning. Let this be the beginning of our commitment, not just to overthrowing the power of the fossil fuel industry, but to replacing it with strong and healthy communities and strong and healthy economies that do not destroy our rivers, our air, and our communities. Let's keep that commitment. Instead of investing our money in corporations that exploit, let's invest our energies, our passions, our voices, our minds, and our lives in that struggle for a healthy and just world. Let's keep that commitment. Thank you.